I've worked with a lot of buyers since beginning my real estate career in 2002. And one thing I've noticed is that buyers have a lot of the same questions about the home buying process. Today, I'm going to share 7 of the most commonly asked home buying questions with you so that you can have the best possible experience buying your next home. If you stay till the end, I've got a special bonus question that I'm sure is going to knock your socks off. This is Monday Mornings with Mark. Hi, I'm your host, Mark J. Schmidt of RE/MAX Country and MoveMeMark.com, where I help you get the most out of the real estate market and your home. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and make sure you like us on Facebook so you don't miss out. Buying a home is one of the most exciting things you can do. You know, from the moment you make that decision that now is the time to buy a home to when you actually get those keys, it can be exciting, exhilarating, scary. You go through so many emotions. Today, I want to go over 7 of the most commonly asked questions so that you can really be as prepared as possible as you head into this exciting journey. So let's get started. Question number 1 is, what's the first step of the home buying process? The first step of the home buying process is a crucial one, and that is speak to a lender about being pre-qualified for a mortgage. This is so important. There's a number of reasons why it's important. First, just because you are paying a certain amount of money in rent doesn't mean you're going to qualify for that same amount of money as a mortgage. Remember, when you're borrowing money from a lender, they have certain ratios and standards that they have to go by, and what you're paying in rent can definitely be more than what you'd be qualified for to pay in a mortgage. So you definitely want to get pre-qualified so you know exactly how much you're going to qualify for. One of the worst things you can do is to start looking for a home, think, you know what, I think I can afford this much. Then you find your dream home and then you find out you can't buy it. That is heartbreaking. Do not get involved in that. Speak to a lender first. Besides letting you know how much of a mortgage you can qualify for, they can also give you some great tips and ideas about improving your credit score and also being able to qualify for more money. For example, they may tell you to pay down a credit card because once you have that credit card paid down, you can qualify for more of a loan. This could be the difference between you getting your dream home and getting something just short of your dream home. So speak to a lender first. That is the first step in the home buying process. Question number 2, how long will it take to buy a home? This actually is answered in 2 parts. So the first part is, we're not sure. We're not sure how long it'll take you to get from starting to want to buy a home to actually finding your dream home. Sometimes we can find you a home pretty quickly. Sometimes it may take a little while longer. It really depends on what kind of market we're in. Are we in a hot seller's market or in a buyer's market? And it also depends on what is available at the time when you go looking. If you've got certain requirements, that are maybe little custom things, this and that, it may be a little bit harder to find the home you're looking for than if you're looking for something that's more common. So that part there, the time from when you decide to buy a home to finding that home, that's up in the air. That can take a few weeks to a month, a few months, a year. It can be anything. Now, the second part to that question is, how long will it take to close on a home? So once we find you your dream home, from the time you sign a contract, you get your offer accepted and you sign a contract to when you actually close, you're looking at 45 to 60 days. Now, typically, 45 to 60 days is the average. It can be longer, it can be shorter. This is something you have to work out with the seller. They're going to have their own ideas about when they want to close. I recently had a listing where, my clients are looking for a normal 60-day close. I got offers, we had multiple offers on this property, and I got offers with, a 30-day closing. That's really tight, because you have to remember, while you're waiting to close, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. During that time when you initially sign that contract to the closing, you're going to have attorney review, you're going to have a home inspection, there's going to be title work done, appraisal. So there's a lot of different things that go on that have to be done behind the scenes that you don't even know about. So that's why 45 to 60 days from contract to close. Question number 3, how much money do I need for a down payment? Well, it really depends on what you're looking to do. Not everyone has 20% to put down on a home, and you don't need 20% to put down on a home. The reason why it's good to put 20% down when you can is because when you put 20% down on a home, you don't need to pay PMI. PMI is private mortgage insurance. This is insurance that you pay that protects the lender, should you default, for that money between the amount you actually put down and getting you to that 20% level. So if you don't want to pay PMI, having 20% to put down is the only way to do it. Now, there are other loan programs that you can use that do not require 20% down. So this leads us to question number 4. Are there special home buying programs? Yes, there are. There are a number of different programs that you can use that don't require you to put 20% down on your new home. Now, if you put 20% down, you'd be going with what's called a conventional mortgage. But there are other types of mortgages like an FHA mortgage, which only requires you to put 3.5% down. You could get a VA loan if you're a veteran. A VA loan is actually a 0% down loan. You do have to pay what's called the VA funding fee, but as a veteran, you can actually buy a home with no money down, and that actually gives you certain protections going forward if you should ever have trouble paying for your mortgage or what have you. This is a benefit for veterans, and not every veteran takes advantage of it. So if you are a veteran, you should definitely look into it. There's another type of loan called a USDA loan. You can also get those loans with 0% down. Those are very special. Those are for more rural areas, and you do have to check the property and make sure that it is eligible for a USDA loan. But there are a number of different loan products that can make it easy for you to get into a home with less than 20% down. Question number 5. How much money do I need for closing costs? This is a very good question. Typically, you're going to want to have around 3% of the purchase price on hand for closing costs. That's a good little metric that you can use to know what you should kind of have on hand moving forward. There are a lot of different things you have to pay for. For example, you're going to prepay taxes on your home. There may be interest you're prepaying. If you're paying for any points or anything like that, that doesn't happen too often, but if you do, you'll need that as part of your closing costs. So typically, 3% of the purchase price is going to be right around where you want to be for your closing costs. Now, this leads us to question number 6. Can the seller pay my closing costs? That is an interesting question, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people ask this and they say, gee, I'd like the seller to pay my closing costs. Well, the seller isn't really paying your closing costs. What's happening is you make an offer on a home, and then what you're doing is you're asking the seller to credit you money back at the closing to pay for your closing costs. So really what the seller is doing is they're agreeing to take less money for the home, and they're agreeing to give you what's known as a seller's concession. That's the money that they're giving you. But what you're actually doing is instead of the seller paying for your closing costs, you're actually just baking the cost of your closing into your loan. So yes, you can do this. You can ask for a seller's concession, but it really depends on the market. Once again, if you're in a hot seller's market and there are multiple offers, it's going to be much more difficult to get a homeowner to agree to give you a seller's concession when there may be another buyer who is not going to be so encumbered. If they're coming with no strings attached and they just say, hey, here's our offer and we're ready to close this date, and you're coming with, hey, here's our offer and we're ready to close, but we'd like you to give us $9,000 back at the closing. It's a no-brainer. So it can be done, but it's always better if you do have the money on hand. If you need to do it, talk to me. We'll figure out a way we can make it work. Now, question number 7. Once we're under contract, can we bring a contractor or a relative or whoever to the house? I get this question every so often where a buyer will say, you know what, we want to go and we need to measure the cabinets. I've got a granite guy who wants to come over. I want to see where we're going to be putting the couch. You really can't do that. Now, sometimes you have a seller who you get along with really well, and they're open to allowing you to do that. But contractually speaking, there are only a certain number of times that the seller has to allow you in the home. The first is for the home inspection. The second, you could come to the appraisal. It doesn't happen a whole lot. Usually it's just like one of the agents and the appraiser there for the appraisal. You do have the right to an initial walkthrough and then a final walkthrough. So during the initial walkthrough, you would go through the house to see if any repairs that the homeowner agreed to make from the home inspection have actually been done. We used to just do a final walkthrough without that initial walkthrough, but this initial walkthrough helps you avoid having problems on the day of the closing. You can go there like a week or two before the closing, make sure everything looks good, and then on the day of the closing, you just make sure the place is standing and that nothing has broken since the last time you saw it. So you can actually go back to the house, but it's going to be up to the kindness of the seller as to whether or not they actually want to let you in. Of course, as with all things, it never hurts to ask. Now we have one last bonus question, and it's this. When do I get the keys? You get the keys for your new home at the closing and not before. Remember, the seller still owns that house until you sign all that paperwork and the money from the lender is transferred over. So at the closing, you get the keys. Sometimes, there may be something happens where you allow the seller to stay in the house for a little while longer after the closing. Say they just need a few extra days or a week because they're waiting to close on their next home, whatever the case. So then you'll get the keys then. But typically at the closing is when you're going to get the keys. Now listen, if you have other questions about buying a home or selling a home, or if you have questions in general about real estate, there's a fantastic resource. It's my website. You can find me at www.MoveMeMark.com. Thanks so much for watching. If you missed our last episode, I've got it right here for you. And here's another episode that YouTube thinks you should watch. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that circle and subscribe so you don't miss out. And I'll see you next time for more Monday Mornings with Mark. You have a great week.